So I think the best place to actually start is I was actually one of those people who became Muslim like on my own. Literally 20 years ago, on New Year's Eve, I after looking at Islam and studying and reflecting actually on it for many years, at least 3 years, I like finally took that leap to like make the shahada to actually say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammad Rasulullah, and I did that all alone in my room. And for at least 4 or 5 months, I actually really just had that experience of being alone. Um, I knew why I chose to be Muslim. I actually had no doubts in actually doing it, but there was definitely something clearly missing. And I would actually make it analogous to actually track. So if you've ever been to a track meet before, you actually look and you'll see that in the track meet, there's so many things actually going on. At any given time, there's a lot of events going on. And actually, there'll be the idea of a team. There's one team versus another team versus another team, right? But if you really look at it, there's a lot of individual successes and failures just really going on there. Somebody can actually, their team might be able to win the event, but there could be somebody who played a lot better in one particular part of sport, whether that be shot put, whether that be how they jumped, whether it be how they ran. So in a way, it's like there could be a lot of chaos when you actually look at the sport, and there's a lot of like aloneness. And so that's what I was. I was like a Muslim, almost like at a track meet. I was very much alone in my experience, and I didn't actually have the sense of community. And the biggest piece of actually a shift for me, where life actually became different, was when I actually finally went to the mosque. And believe it or not, it was because somebody who I was friends with, and I didn't even know he was Muslim at the time, he said he had gone to this particular mosque. So I actually took the trek and walked to this mosque. And after walking to this mosque, and actually after having just so many years of wanting to become Muslim, wanting to actually really know, am I really a Muslim? Do I like really belong? I actually had to sit down with somebody in the mosque. And it actually even wasn't like an imam or some big figure. It was actually just somebody who was at the mosque at the time who was a professional. He just sat down with me and he answered all my questions. I was asking him some basic questions about iman, about belief. And in that one moment, in that 40 minutes or 20 minutes that that man gave me, in that conversation, I actually just felt like this sense of peace really come over me. And a sense of, yeah, almost like a sense of belonging. And from then on, it's like I got introduced to his children and I actually started going to the mosque. And then I really started getting a sense of actually that aspect of the peace that actually was in Islam. Because without that aspect of the community, without that aspect of actually being actually in that group, you never really get to experience the real flow. And the part that was so interesting is I had spent so much time reading books about how to pray, about how to practice the 5 pillars of Islam. And it was like within 5 or 10 minutes, being able to watch what some other people were doing, being able to be around other people, being able to have a conversation about what other people were doing, I was able to get a higher level and a higher sense of the deen in such a short period of time. And that to me actually speaks to the power of companionship, the power of actually being able to be around somebody else and the impact that it actually has. It's even a concept or an idea even in the social sciences that it's not just like one person plus one person just equals 2. But actually the group, actually, as you add each person, it has its own spirit. It has its own flavor. Just if you even think about movements, when people actually came together, whether that mean to like for empowerment of African Americans, like when people come together, there's a spirit that actually comes over the group. There's a spirit that actually comes all of its own. That's not just 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, but it's actually a group actually has a spirit of its own. And to me, that's actually one of the key aspects of Islam, a key aspects of peace. And that's why it's so powerful and important to actually just be in the group and be able to actually have companionship in Islam to actually come through some levels. It's often been said, like, you know, you'll look and you'll say, okay, I'm here. How is it that I actually can get to another place? And the idea in Islam is very much like the idea in any other place. Like if you want to be a successful businessman, you start hanging out with who? Successful businessmen, right? So it's almost like the same idea. As you want to learn and grow in your Islam, how do you do that? You actually spend your time around and inside the community. And I would say that that actually is a central piece to the other part that I actually really want to talk about, which is the importance of knowledge of Islam. Like, so I feel like there's a place where a person actually is not going to experience the other level of Islam, which actually has to do with peace as well, if they actually don't have knowledge. Like anybody is, if you've ever cooked something, if you've ever like went through the procedure of something, knowing actually how to do it yourself gives you a sense of security, gives you a sense of confidence that nothing else like really can. No matter how well you actually might follow something, no matter how well that you actually might like look at somebody and go right behind them, there's a different sense that you actually have when you know what's about to come next. Even if you're following, when you actually know, okay, so this person turns this way, I know like because of my own GPS, for example, if I'm actually following somebody and I have my own GPS, I still have a security. Okay, I know this is the route they're supposed to go, and that's actually in a sense the power of actually learning and studying in the religion. The idea of you actually ever belonging or you actually feeling like this deen is like this big elephant and like being afraid to actually or not knowing if you actually really belong, that experience is never really going to go away unless you actually really start taking some steps to really start to know what it is that God is actually asking in particular of you, what it is that God is actually asking in particular of the community, because there's different levels of things that a person is actually asked to do. And that will again come about when you actually seek it out and company. So actually, as you spend time in the community, you start knowing actually who is a more knowledgeable person, who is the type of person that you actually want to aspire to. And that in of itself will unfold the type of people that you really want to be around amongst the groups of Muslims that actually are there, that actually will help guide you to being more secure in yourself and having that sense of peace about your religion. And so in that same vein, it really talks about the importance of the conversation that's going to take place on April 17th at Rutgers University. It's an opportunity to actually come together as Muslims and be able to taste from the number of converts that are actually out there and be able to have a conversation about some of the concerns that exist, some of the things that we struggle with as we actually go through our Islam, and be able to, for you to find that group, that individual, maybe even just one person made the network with one person that's going to have it so that your Islam can go from where it is and be able to build and go along to a place where you get a higher sense of peace, because that's just really what I believe the heart of this religion is really about.